I respect and appreciate him for being that guy for my brother Khabib. Because without Conor McGregor, Khabib doesn't go to the moon. Right? You need that guy. And I think Ilia Topuria and Islam might be that for each other. So while you may not like each other, you may need each other.
I think pound for pound is, does your fighting style translate weight classes? We saw by knocking out Volkanovski, by knocking out Holloway, his fighting style is effective at 145.
Daniel Cormier just lit a fire under the MMA world by calling Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria the biggest fight in MMA history. He says the rising tension between them reminds him of the legendary Khabib versus McGregor rivalry. According to Cormier, this could be the next feud that takes the sport to a whole new level. In his eyes, Islam and Ilia are set to bring the kind of intensity that made Khabib versus Conor unforgettable. And this might be the biggest bout the UFC could possibly make. Right now,
people might not like his personality. People might think he's too much. He was great. And I was talking to someone today about it. I said, while I may not have the greatest relationship with Conor McGregor, partly because of Khabib and his relationship with Conor McGregor, I respect and appreciate him for being that guy for my brother Khabib. Because without Conor McGregor, Khabib doesn't go to the moon. Right? You need that guy. And I think Ilia Topuria and Islam might be that for each other. So while you may not like each other, you may need each other to go to the next level. So I appreciate Conor for helping Khabib achieve the life that he has today, to really propel you forward. And if I'm Patty, I'm not fighting anybody but one of those names. True. Because that's going to put me in line for a championship.
Backing Cormier's hype, Kamaru Usman chimed in by saying that the UFC has been creating matchups that turn fighters into superstars. He brought up Ilia Topuria's showdown with Charles Oliveira as a perfect example of how one big fight can change everything. If Ilia ends up facing Islam next, Usman believes it could blow up into a mega fight, one that might even surpass the historic Khabib versus Conor showdown in terms of global impact.
I feel like the last year and a half have kind of been in this phase of trying to figure out who's going to break out, who's going to break out, who's going to be that next guy to carry the torch. And now I feel like right now where we're at, they're starting to put these fights together again that could potentially, someone could shine out of there. You know, we've got Oliveira and Ilia.
That dude Ilia.
That could also send Ilia out there for a while.
Interestingly, Daniel Cormier takes it a step further. He actually thinks Ilia Topuria is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the game right now. Yes, even ahead of Islam Makhachev. He says it's all about how Ilia keeps proving he can dominate across different weight classes with explosive power and killer instinct that separate him from everyone else in the sport.
I think pound for pound is, does your fighting style translate weight classes? We saw by knocking out Volkanovski, by knocking out Holloway, his fighting style is effective at 145. Before he started as a bantamweight, it was effective there because he's undefeated. Now he's the lightweight champion. I agree. I think that at this point, he is number one pound for pound because he has shown that his fighting style, regardless of the weight class, is effective. But not only effective, Dino, he is knocking dudes out. So the power has followed him up to lightweight as it was at 140.
Dean Thomas also weighed in, noting that Ilia was already ranked above Islam in the pound-for-pound list before he even fought Oliveira. Looking at the tough names Ilia has already beaten, Thomas says he's been among the elite for a while. That win over Charles Oliveira, it just locked in his claim as the true #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
Absolutely. When you look at his strength of schedule, when you look at the guys that he's beaten, he was already, even without the Charles Oliveira win, he was already in the ranking to being one of the best. I would say top 3, top 5 for sure, maybe top 3. But the win over Charles Oliveira, first round knockout, solidifies Ilia Topuria as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, no doubt.
And Thomas isn't done. He says Ilia's technique is so polished that he could jump up to 170 pounds and still beat Islam. In fact, he's always backed Ilia in that matchup. Thomas pointed out how Islam struggled with Alexander Volkanovski. Meanwhile, Ilia made quick work of Volk and barely broke a sweat doing it.
He's so clean. It's his technique, and it's not necessarily just his power, like he's bench pressing all this weight. His technique is so clean that when he's hitting guys and he's hitting them right on the spot, they can't hold up. I believe that he'll knock out anybody from anywhere up until 170. Really? I do believe his power will translate into 170. I think he beats Islam.
Oh my God.
I always thought he would beat Islam. Here's why. Because Islam, I think Islam had struggled with in the Volkanovski fight, the very first Volkanovski fight, he struggled with getting underneath Alexander Volkanovski. Islam struggled to get underneath him to be able to take him down. He's going to have a hard time getting underneath
Ilia
Topuria. He's going to have a hard time getting underneath Topuria to take him down. If you don't take him down, he's getting...
Dana White also jumped into the conversation, saying if it were up to him, he'd lock in Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev tomorrow. But for now, he admitted it's all just speculation. Still, Dana knows how the fight game works. The more people talk, the more real it starts to feel.
That seems like such a big fight to make.
I mean, this is all talk.
Speculative.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
But I imagine that's a fight you guys would want to make at some point. I mean, just the magnitude
Sure.
of it.
I mean, I'd make that fight tomorrow.
UFC commentator John Anik added to the hype, pointing out how Ilia Topuria is mowing down future Hall of Famers one after the other. He compared Ilia's rise to Conor McGregor's breakout run, but noted one big difference. Ilia doesn't need the wild trash talk or cage-jumping antics. He's just a quiet storm, calmly tearing through the competition.
Right, but you set it up well. He is so matter-of-fact, as if the outcome is an eventuality against Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer, and now after third Hall of Famer, that I don't really know that there's a comp. I mean, yes, there's a lot of Conor McGregor parallels to be drawn, but even the way after he wins, he's just like, you know, he doesn't even have the desire, and maybe it's because he's 5'6" and he can't get there. No, I'm just kidding, but doesn't even have the desire to jump on the cage, you know? It's just crazy. And the celebration the night before, when an athlete says things like, you know, I'm just going to collect the belt and I want it in camp, right? It's like, yeah, but you know, you still got to go perform on fight.
For Anik, watching Ilia fight is like witnessing someone bend time inside the octagon. Even after 15+ years of calling fights, he says Ilia still makes him throw his hands in the air in disbelief. There's something about the way Ilia moves, strikes, and finishes that just hits different, and it's rare to see that kind of magic.
It's almost as if he bends time. He is doing things that have guys like me who feel like I've seen a lot of things over 15 years, throwing my hands up in the air and being like, I haven't really seen this. Just imagine if you are Islam Makhachev, Justin Gaethje, or Dustin Poirier, and you're watching that play out. Any fighter with recent history with Charles Oliveira, you know, from say 2019 on, and then you see that, right? And don't tell me this isn't a prime Charles Oliveira, right? I mean, if this is the Hunger Games, he still leads the league, right? He's still as hungry as fighter, right? So imagine what it's like for some of Ilia Topuria's contemporaries to be watching.
Bo Nickal also gave Ilia his flowers, calling him the true pound-for-pound #1. He believes Ilia wants that fight with Islam badly, and more importantly, he can win it. Bo pointed to Islam's first fight with Volkanovski as proof that someone like Ilia can break him down. Based on that, he's confident Topuria has all the tools to shock the world.
I think he's the pound for pound #1 right now.
Let's see Ilia Islam.
He wants that fight bad, and I think he can win. And what makes me think that Ilia will do really well against Islam is Volk's first fight with Islam. I'm like, man, I think Ilia's wrestling is way better than Volk's, and obviously you could see how the striking went. And he's been knocked out.
Demetrious Johnson took a more tactical approach, breaking down how he sees the matchup playing out. He said the key will be Ilia hunting for clean openings while Islam does everything to shut those down. Johnson leans slightly toward Islam if it happens, but he's just as curious as everyone else, especially knowing Islam would likely bring a whole new strategy for this type of threat.
I think each time Ilia fights, you're always going to see him get to the right spot and knock people out.
What an Islam-Ilia fight would look like?
No. It'll be Ilia trying to get to the right spot, and then Islam not let him get to that spot.
So who are you siding on that one with? If it's still the same opinion, is it Islam?
I think it would be Islam because I'll have to see, because I think Islam's gonna approach it differently. Islam's a southpaw, so he's gonna probably throw body kicks to keep his arms busy, keep a distance, move, feint, maybe use some judo to take him down and try to get him to the ground and try to submit him. But you know, once again, like I have to see, you know, I have to see what Islam does to JDM. But you know, I know the one thing that's the factor is that Ilia is always going to focus on getting to the right spot and fighting his opponents.
Demetrious Johnson went even deeper, saying the real challenge is figuring out how to stay out of Ilia Topuria's danger zone. Ilia is not just explosive, he's got the gas tank to fight at full throttle for all 25 minutes.
Ilia can't get there, then he's going to figure out another way to get there. So the question is, how does everybody avoid that sweet spot against Ilia? That's the question, because Ilia is going to fight in a 25-minute fight.
But the real question, Johnson says, is whether Islam Makhachev can control that chaos or if he'll eventually have to enter the fire. For now, Demetrious isn't ready to give a clear prediction. He wants to first see how Islam handles Jack Della Maddalena.
That's what it comes down to. And then you go from like, hey, how does Islam keep Ilia away from that spot, or does Islam meet him there? Right? There's so much, that goes into it, and my brain is all over the place. So for me to give like a clear-cut answer, I'm just like, I'm running around in a circle.
Johnson also shared his thoughts on how things might shift if the fight moves up to 170. He said he'd probably lean toward Islam at that weight, though it's not cut and dry. Ilia already walks around at 174, so he's close to that division. Naturally, Demetrious praised Ilia's frame, saying he carries the extra weight well, which could level the playing field more than people think.
Honestly, no, not necessarily. No, I don't think so. Because I think Ilia will be 170. I mean, he walks on 174 from what I heard. So
he's not big though at lightweight, man. You saw him next to Charles. He didn't look very big for the.
Charles is tall, right? Charles isn't a thick boy. If you look at Ilia Topuria's core, his core is thick. It's a functional core. Charles is just taller.
Smaller coming up. It'll be interesting because he is bigger from when I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like 191, I think he was walking around. It's massive. So for him to cut to 145, it just seems almost like, how did he do that? But now that he's going to 155, I always like when athletes go up heavier to their natural.
Bilal Muhammad offered his breakdown too, saying Islam's defense and control of distance would be the X factors. He explained that if Islam can close the gap, he'll go straight to grappling and avoid the kind of chaotic trades Ilia loves. In Bilal's eyes, once Islam gets his hands on you, the fight slows down. Ilia's power won't be as big of a threat if he's pressed up against the cage and neutralized early.
Me, when I look at that matchup and I break it down, I think Islam is very good with defense and with distance. If he's close, he's grappling. He's not staying in that brawling zone that Topuria loves. If he's within grabbing your range, he's grabbing you. And I don't care if Topuria is able to defend a first or second takedown. Islam's going to keep you there. He's going to push you on the cage. If I'm in Islam's corner, that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping him there, especially for the first, second, third round, trying to initiate that takedown. Oliveira got the body lock pretty early. Islam is really good there with the trips, with the body locks, with the single legs there. I think he would have continued grappling there, and it would have been a lot more interesting. It would have definitely got past the first round, and we would have seen how Topuria held up. He didn't really need to show his cardio. That one's a fun one, man. I'm excited for.
Bilal also made it clear, this won't be a simple striker versus grappler fight. Both Ilia and Islam have shown they're dangerous in all areas. He thinks Ilia might actually try to trap Islam against the fence, where he seems a bit less comfortable. And according to Bilal, there's a good chance both fight camps are already talking, trying to get this showdown locked in as soon as possible.
Realistically, I don't think it's grappler against striker. Islam showed his last couple fights that he is comfortable on the feet. He's fought the shorter guy in Volkanovski, and he's played a little bit striking. He showed moments in that fight where he knocked him out with a head kick. And then the Dustin fight, he showed his boxing. He showed that he can hit on the feet. I think with Topuria, who does have really good grappling, really good wrestling, he's going to want to push Islam backwards, keeping Islam on his back foot, keeping Islam's against the cage where he's uncomfortable, and he's really good with his feinting. He doesn't really throw a lot of kicks. On the other side, Islam is really good with his kicks. If he mixes the kicks up low, body high, Islam's not going to be in that boxing range.
Still, John Anik reminded everyone that Islam Makhachev has unfinished business before any talk of Ilia Topuria can get serious. He pointed out that Islam first has to take care of Jack Della Maddalena. Until that's handled, Anik believes Islam camp shouldn't get distracted, because only after that fight can they really shift focus to what could be the biggest matchup in the division.
There's so much to this, right? So the other thing is that if you're talking about Jack Della Maddalena and Islam Makhachev fighting in late October, right? Topuria seemingly has an appetite to fight the first week of December. Right now, there's a television contract. I have no idea, despite the fact that I work on TV, as to how that could play into things. But would you hold Topuria out for your new TV partner or your new television deal first quarter 2026? I just don't know. But I think Islam Makhachev and Jack Della Maddalena probably need to settle their business before they figure out what they're going to do with Ilia.
Yeah. On the flip side, Daniel Cormier made it clear that while fans often compare Ilia Topuria to Conor McGregor, the similarities end quickly. He emphasized that Ilia carries himself very differently. No overthought antics, no headlines outside the cage. Cormier said Ilia brings nothing but class, and fans need to appreciate that distinction instead of lumping them together.
Ilia Topuria is great. I tell you one thing, it don't matter if you love him or you hate him. I don't understand why so many were booing him over the course of last week, when in reality, all he has done is the right thing. I get it. There are a lot of comparisons to Conor McGregor, but there's a lot of differences in Ilia Topuria. He has not carried himself in the way that McGregor did. So while there are similarities in the fight career, we have to understand who Ilia Topuria has shown us to be as the man is vastly different. So while the actions are great inside the octagon, to this point, all he has shown us is great actions outside of the octagon. Now I know.
Cormier expanded on that, saying even if Khabib and Islam don't have a close personal bond with Ilia, they absolutely respect what he's done. Inside the cage, Ilia has earned their recognition. Cormier stressed that no matter how things play out from here, everyone has to admit Ilia's rise is something unique. He's not just good, he's different.
Great friends out in Dagestan, may not have the best relationship with him, but I do know, if I know these guys, they respect what he has done inside the octagon. We'll see what happens in the future. But as of today, just acknowledge that this kid is great and he's different. And what he's doing to this point is as good as anything we have seen in a really long time. That confidence, that smile, that walk lets you know that you are watching an individual who believes that only success lies ahead of him every time they step into the octagon.
At the end of the day, whether you back Islam, Makhachev, or ride with Ilia Topuria, this potential fight could mark a whole new chapter in UFC history. It's the kind of showdown that pushes both men to a different level. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, share it with a fellow fight fan, and subscribe to Boxonic for more non-stop MMA coverage. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'll catch you in the next one with even more fire updates.